Now, Andy Mitten is with us this morning to talk to us about Manchester United crashing out of the Champions League. Andy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We live in an accelerated culture, we know that, and there's always an immediate knee-jerk after a team crashes out of the Champions League group stages, but there were times when Alex Ferguson didn't get out of group stages or crashed out early from Champions Leagues. The difference, I suppose, was that Ferguson had money in the bank when it came to the Manchester United fans. What level of discord are you seeing from United fans in the aftermath of this?
There were times when Manchester United crashed out of the UEFA Cup under Alex Ferguson against such mighty teams as Rota Volgograd and Torpedo Moscow, when he didn't have a lot of credit in the bank. But I get your point. Manchester United were an ascendant force when that had happened in 92, and also in 95 they'd won a few league titles. And you're right, it is a much more accelerated culture now. Look, having gone out of the Champions League, the mood will slump. United fans will be very angry, confused, annoyed, all those types of feelings, especially because the fans felt that they were probably going to go through after that win in Paris and that really good home win against RB. So it's a big disappointment for Manchester United. I know it was a tough group, and maybe when it was drawn, the reaction from a lot of United fans, which was, well, we're going back into the Europa League, that didn't look accurate a few games in, but that is the reality. Manchester United will now be going, along with the 7,000 other teams, into the Europa League and trying to plod along to a final in Gdansk. I know some fans who actually booked hotels in Gdansk last year in the hope that United would reach the final. You might ask me whether Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will keep his job. I suspect he will. I'm not the one making the decision, but the way that Manchester United started that game was pretty shocking. And they keep starting games in a pretty poor manner. They keep going behind in games, and it's pretty unforgivable. And Harry Maguire, the captain, went into that game talking a good game about how United were ready, how they were going to attack. I'm sorry, they're just hollow words. It was a really, really poor start for Manchester United. And when you go 2-0 down and then 3-0 down in the Champions League, you're not coming back from it. But the irony of this Manchester United team is they nearly came back from it.
What's behind the bad starts? In some respects, over the last while, Solskjaer has been rightfully getting some praise for his ability to change within matches and to have a variation of tactical approach, which is a horses for courses approach in one way, or else it's I don't know my best team. That's your glass half full, glass half empty. That's how you read it. Is the tactical flexibility actually giving the team pause for thought when they need to be unconscious and they need to just be doing stuff because they understand what their role is?
Well, you said that the manager received credit when things go right. He should receive criticism when things go wrong. He set that team up. That setup didn't work. It was a 3 or a 5. And some of United's best performances in defence have come playing that formation, such as against PSG away. But those players looked like they hadn't played together at the start of that game last night. RB were very good. They scored very good goals. But when you watch the space between Aaron Wan-Bissaka and the player behind him, Angelino on loan from Manchester City, it was Sunday League stuff. It was awful to watch. And United started badly at the weekend again against West Ham. You can't keep expecting to be coming from behind, especially as the season progresses, as the teams you were likely to meet in the top competitions, such as the Champions League, were likely to improve. They're not going to surrender the league, maybe like West Ham, who are also a decent team, did do. And Ole must take some of the criticism for that. It was the wrong formation. And he made a good change at half-time against West Ham. But that was because he needed to, because the team had started so poorly against West Ham.
I suppose that's
United have gone behind in every single away game in the league this year. That's pretty unforgivable. Now, they've also won all of those games. That's pretty incredible. So when you talk half glass, half full, you're right. And today we're definitely speaking on a half glass full day. But we could speak after the Manchester derby where United have won and it'll be glass half full, not glass half empty as it is today.
I suppose that's the question I'm getting at. Is the chopping and changing actually giving the players a deep understanding of what they're supposed to do? Is it confusing them somewhat? Is that behind the bad starts? Like the good finish suggests that actually the playing staff and the playing squad is rich with talent, and that the squad isn't really that much of an issue because they're capable of producing brilliance in 45 minutes. Now, maybe it needs some fixing, and I think everybody would always say, I could do it 2 or 3 players. That's fair enough, but there's obviously really good talent there. Is this approach the right approach for this group of players, where you're asking them constantly, oh, okay, the midfield is going to be a diamond this week, it's going to be 2 holding players the next week, you're going to try and get your 3 attacking midfielders into the team the week after, and actually, if everybody's looking around, it's going, well, what role am I doing today? What is my job?
They're elite footballers. Wherever they play, they're going to be asked to make tactical changes, even within matches. So if you look at PSG last week, they shifted their formation within the game, just like Manchester United had to do in Germany last night. I'm sorry, players have got to be able to take on instructions. One reason why they get to the level that they're at. And when that system changes, like for the game in Paris or like for the game away at Chelsea in the Premier League when there was a lot of pressure building in January, but United actually played really well and won at Stamford Bridge. I think that's more of the issue, the inconsistency, and getting the team to be more consistent, which they have been in the league. And that will be in the hope that the team get in the Champions League. But what happens when they get into the Champions League? It's so disappointing today to go out at the group stage, because this is a club geared, A, towards Champions League football, but also towards reaching the latter stages of the Champions League. It's Manchester United. They've got no divine right to win anything. And I can remember the team going out against Wolfsburg in 15, which led to the demise of Louis van Gaal, and against Sevilla in the first knockout stage in 18, which was the beginning of the end for Jose Mourinho. And if Ole Gunnar doesn't pick up the form and finish this season strongly, and United need a trophy, absolutely need a trophy, then it's not going to be good for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer either. There are continual questions about whether he is tactically astute enough. However, he's gone head-to-head against the best managers in the world and beaten some of them. His record against them is a good record. What let United down in this group stage wasn't really the start in Leipzig. That was bad. But RB Leipzig finished in the semi-finals of the Champions League last year. It was that result in Istanbul. That's more unforgivable. The way that the team conceded that goal against 35-year-old Djembaba. And again, it was like amateur stuff. And the fans will only take so much of, we're sorry, but there are only so many excuses. And you used the word credit before with Sir Alex Ferguson. Ole doesn't have that bank of credit that Ferguson built up because he hasn't won any trophies yet. And it can be quickly eroded, especially in today's culture, especially in social media, especially when there's no fans inside the ground, to set the mood, because it's more forgiving inside the ground in real life. But then in this accelerated culture, it can change so quickly and beat Manchester City and the mood will be up again. But going out in the group stage of the Champions League, that's a huge disappointment for Manchester United.
Andy, do you mind if I come in there? Neil here. You mentioned the game against Istanbul and how, that's ultimately the result that knocks United out of the Champions League rather than Leipzig or PSG defeats. How concerning is it that the worst of these defeats are generally coming against the teams that United are consistently expected to beat? Like you mentioned how he's got quite a good record against the better teams, the kind of the top 6 teams, or even your PSG or Leipzig. So is that just kind of Solskjaer has this underdog mentality? He's not comfortable maybe being the favourite?
Well, Manchester United are not at the same level as teams like Paris Saint-Germain at the moment. So if you want a measure of success, when PSG came to Old Trafford in 2019, they dominated far more than they did at Old Trafford last week. So Manchester United needed to set up almost as the underdog and play on the counter-attack because they were the underdog, because they're not as good as the very top teams at the moment. When Manchester United then play against the weaker teams, they are invited on. They're expected to break down those teams, and it's something that they struggle to do. Now, things have got better with Bruno Fernandes, and you can use statistics to skew United in such a positive or negative way at the moment. With Fernandes, United have picked up more Premier League points than any other team since he arrived in January. He's clearly made a big difference. There are clearly bright, young, attacking, talented players there, but consistency is an issue. Doubts about positions all over the pitch. David De Gea, another mistake last night in a big match. It's becoming too expensive. This isn't an isolated incident. The defence cost a lot of money. They were completely overrun at the start of the game last night. And it's partly on the tactical system, but it's partly on the players as well. Midfield, why didn't Fred come off against PSG last week? Well, it's because the manager felt that he couldn't bring on a player who was quick enough to deal with the pace of PSG in the middle of the pitch. Mason Greenwood, very, very talented, young. Marcus Rashford, hugely talented, still not consistent enough to be considered a world-class player. Edison Cavani brought in to play Champions League football. He is not playing any more Champions League football. Anthony Martial has had a pretty poor season so far this year. So there's got to be higher levels. There's got to be more consistency. And some of that has got to come back on the manager as well. Ultimately, they'll be judged by where they finish in the league this year. Got to get in the top four. And United need to win a trophy as well, even if that's the FA Cup, even if that's the League Cup, or even if it's now the Europa League. I think that's still a competition which is well worth winning, just as it was in 2017. But I take the point, it can completely sap the energy of a squad with limitations.
What about the sideshow from the agent saying that this is it, he's not happy, it coming out 24, 36 hours before the game, it not really tallying with what Pogba has been saying in the French media, if you actually listen to what Pogba's been saying. But now, in retrospect, if you listen back knowing this is what Pogba really thinks according to his agent, then you get to reinterpret all that stuff and, round and round and round and round we go.
No, it didn't help. The timing was terrible. And Pogba's stock has dropped even further among Manchester United fans, many of whom would gladly drive him to Manchester Airport and wave goodbye to him. He's been a huge disappointment if you're judging him over the 4.5 years since he became the world's most expensive player. You're quite right, there is a contrast between what he says in media mode after the game at West Ham at the weekend, which was pretty positive. He scored a great goal. And United fans were thinking, OK, are we going to see this every 5 or 6 weeks or once a year, twice a year? And then his agent comes out and says that he's wanted to leave the club. That doesn't help the club. It doesn't help the dressing room. It doesn't help the manager. There are not the same number of suitors for Paul Pogba that there were in 2016. When Barcelona wanted him but didn't have the money. When Real Madrid wanted him and thought they'd signed him. When Manchester United wanted him. He earns so much money now that if he wants to leave and move on, he's going to have to take a pay cut. That's the probability of it. Because his stock has dropped. All these big clubs use third-party scouting systems. They judge players across a huge range of metrics. And I'm told that Paul Pogba doesn't feature highly in any of them for players in his position. He's supposed to be one of the top 5 midfielders in the world. He hasn't looked like it. He's been injured. He's been played in positions that he doesn't prefer, but he's had some absolute stinkers as well, and giving penalties away, giving the ball away in his own box. Standards should be higher at Manchester United.
It's hard to see anybody wanting to pay those wages. As you say, the statistics are going to look really bad when you go to your board as the manager of Juventus or whoever and say, oh, look, Pogba's available. And they're like, OK, make the case for me, make the business case. And the first business case is, well, we're going to sell a lot of shirts and it's big on social media. And then what about the playing stuff? Well, we're going to sell a lot of shirts and he's going to be big on social media.
He's not even selling shirts like he was doing. When he came on against RB, he was actually one of the better players and he did score a goal. When he came on against PSG, he set up the winning goal. But we're talking about Paul Pogba being a substitute. He wasn't bought to be a substitute. He was bought to be a talisman to make Manchester United great again, for the team to be built around him because he'd done so well at Juventus. And it's just not happened. And he's frustrated and he wants to move on. And as you say, who's going to take him on that money? It's going to take a big wage cut. But you could say that about several players. David De Gea is the best paid goalkeeper in the world. He's the best paid Spanish footballer on this planet, and he's made several costly errors this year. So you wonder whether Dean Henderson's going to get a proper run in the team.
One last point on Raiola before I ask you about De Gea, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a shot back at him last night saying Raiola needs to understand that football is a team sport. Raiola doesn't. Raiola needs to make money because that's what his function is for himself and for his player. Where does this go though? Because if you want to sell him, maybe you actually have to play him so that his stats improve to the point where somebody considers paying him. But if you have to pick him but you don't actually want to, you're risking your job and you're risking your credibility with the dressing room. So it's not a great situation for him.
Raiola made £41 million moving Paul Pogba to Manchester United. He's long been a cause of concern for the club. However, he has some of the best players in the world in his stable. It's very easy to say, don't deal with this agent or that agent on a point of principle. These agents have got so much power, so much control. It's not quite so easy in reality. Raiola has Haaland, for example, a player who Manchester United absolutely wanted, but he chose to go to Borussia Dortmund. With Pogba, we're going round and round with this. I think that Ole has been big enough to drop him. He's been bold enough to drop him. He picks the best team for the game. Jose Mourinho certainly felt that he had to play Paul Pogba, and did play Paul Pogba. He felt the pressure to play Paul Pogba. He told someone I know the day after the Sevilla defeat in Manchester in 2018, as much of that he felt he had to play Paul Pogba. Ole Gunnar does not feel that he has to play Pogba. The value's already gone. The damage has been done. His stock, as I said, is miles lower than it was. Even though he's a French World Cup winner, his recent performances for France have not been good. I read the criticisms of him after the last batch of international matches. Now, to be fair to him, he's had COVID. He's professional within the club. He's a popular lad within the club.
Yeah.
He's a really polite lad. So you're mixing all of these things in. But what would Sir Alex Ferguson do? What would Jurgen Klopp do? What would Joseph Guardiola do? They make the tough decisions, and Ole's got to make a few tough decisions at the moment.
The last one, the parallels with Chelsea, where Kepa was having trouble, they stuck a new goalkeeper in, and the defence has improved because it's given confidence to everybody. If De Gea is causing confidence issues amongst the back four, maybe he's not, maybe the back four are giving him confidence issues, but either way, you should investigate that. And you've got a good young goalkeeper. You don't know what the ceiling is for your sub. You may as well stick him in and see what happens.
Yep, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And De Gea is causing some issues. The defenders are looking back across. It was felt that Dean Henderson coming in would push David De Gea because he hadn't been pushed in recent years. And I say that, it sounds slightly confusing because Sergio Romero was rated as the best number two. The problem was he was always seen as a number two for the league games. So De Gea didn't really have pressure, but he does have it now from Dean Henderson. I think fans would cut him a little bit of slack, which did need to do because he's still a young goalkeeper. And David De Gea took 6 or 7 months to settle into the Premier League. Pretty tough months. Don't think that Dean Henderson would need that. But again, De Gea was given a huge contract last year. Huge contract. He can sit on that just as Paul Pogba has been able to. And Paul Pogba can run his contract down and leave for free if he wants to. It's a really unfortunate situation when you're top of the transfer tree in terms of the wages that you pay, if not in terms of the status of your team. When you try and move players on who haven't been stars in your team, if United tried to move Bruno on now, there'd be no shortage of takers. But there's 5 or 6 players there who are not getting a look in at the moment, and they're not being moved on because they earn far too much money. So it's an unfortunate problem for Manchester United. Henderson deserves a chance.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
That's Andy Mitten there. You can read his stuff in The Athletic, ESPN, You Know Where We Stand, and 442 Football Magazine.